All right, it's preparing.
Okay, let us know when we are live and Marcia can take it from there.
All right, it's preparing. Looks like we're up and
Let us know
going.
when we're live and Marcia can take it from there.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the commission meeting, the LGBTQ commission meeting. Marcia Botzer, she and her co-chair. And we want to call ourselves to order now, and we will begin with a roll call of commissioners. Staff, Meryl, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Lars Erickson.
Here.
Commissioner Karen Frederick Goldenson is excused. Commissioner Mae Griffith is excused. Commissioner Toby Hillmeyer is excused. Commissioner KB Kelly Baroga, I hope I said that correctly.
Here.
Commissioner Matthew Landers is excused. Commissioner Everett Maroon.
Present.
Commissioner Jeffrey Robinson.
Here and happy to be here.
Commissioner Josette Ross.
Here.
Commissioner Stephen Sawyer. Stephen. Okay. Commissioner Beto Yars is excused. And then now we're going to do the officers. Commissioner Marcia Botzer is here. And then Isis, I'm just going to say Isis because I don't want to read your name wrong.
Sure, it's Amayotipu. I'm also here.
Thank you. Jack Archer. Commissioner Jack Archer, not here. Commissioner Alvaro Figueroa.
Present.
And that is the call to, that is everyone, Marcia.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm glad everyone is here. We do a land acknowledgement, and that is next on our list. And today, our executive director is going to read that.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Manny Santiago, and the executive director of the commission. Use any pronouns, and I will be reading our land acknowledgement. I apologize in advance for mispronouncing some of these names that I will be recognizing today of some of the tribes in our state, both recognized and not recognized by the federal government. We believe that it's important to recognize where we are and the lands that we occupy, and also recognize and celebrate indigenous peoples, not only in our state, but throughout the continent. So with all the respect to the communities whose lands we inhabit, we want to share these words with you. The Washington State LGBTQ Commission recognizes that we live and work in stolen lands. These lands, water, mountains, skies, and everything within them have been inhabited since time immemorial by the descendants of the 29 federally recognized tribes, as well as the many not recognized tribal communities in the state of Washington. The members of the commission come from occupied lands of the Chehalis, Colville, Colitz, Hall, Jamestown, Sklallam, Kalispell, Lower Elwha, Klallam, Lumi, Maka, Muckleshoot, Nisqually, Nooksack, Port Gamble, Sklallam, Puyallup, Quileute, Quinault, Samish, Sauk, Shoalwater, Skokomish, Snoqualmie, Spokane, Squaxin Island, Still-Squamish, Suquamish, Sunwamish, Tulalip, Upper Skagit, Umatilla, Walla Walla, Palouse, Yakama, Duwamish, Wanapum, and Chinook, among others. We recognize the history of colonization, genocide, subjugation, and enslavement experienced by Indigenous peoples in these lands and throughout the continent. It is our commitment as a state agency to recognize tribal sovereignty, to work alongside tribal partners for the well-being of our communities, to celebrate the achievements of the many Indigenous communities among us, and to dismantle the ongoing legacy of settled colonialism, as well as the exclusion and erasure of Indigenous peoples that continues until today, and may it be so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We want to just note that we have legislative advisors that support our commission, and they are State Senator Claire Wilson from the 30th District, State Representative Nicole Macri from the 43rd, and State Representative Skylar Rood from the 16th District. Now, at this point, we generally ask staff for housekeeping issues.
I can do that.
Mira, if you would, please.
I can do that, Marcia,
right.
don't worry. We are not going to have members of the community joining on Zoom. They are tuning in through our social media channels. However, we also want to call the commissioners to just keep the same rules that we follow for all people who are on the call. So in that, some of those important things to keep in mind is keep your mic muted until it's your turn to speak. To the extent that is possible, turn off your camera. Actually, that should say turn on your camera for commissioner. Sorry about that. The chat will be used to troubleshoot. Remember not to discuss anything on the chat because any business on the chat, because this is a public meeting. We want to make sure that the public has access to the conversation. So every conversation should be public. So use the chat only for troubleshoot. To Katie, let's make sure that we stay on schedule so we can use our time wisely. Please don't be using any disruptive behavior. And as I said, there is no public in the meeting currently, but people who want to make any comment can send me the comments as Omar is on medical leave. And my email is on the screen for any member of the public who is watching, who wants to submit any public comment related to the LGBTQ community or the work of the commission. So my email is on the screen for those who want to submit any comments. Thank you. Oh, yes. So the guidelines for healthy and safe interaction assume positive intent on the part of all the participants. Do not use any transphobic, homo, lesbo, or biphobic language, misogynist language, xenophobic language, racist or anti-Black language, ableist or ageist or foul language during your interactions. And obviously name calling or insults are not permitted in this meeting. With that, thank you so much, Madam Co-Chair Butzer, and we can then move on to the next step.
Thank you. What we'll do now is we'll review our minutes and vote on those, and then after that we'll have reports. And Co-Chair Commissioner Honan, if you will lead those report sections. So approval of minutes. Would someone offer a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
Madam Chair, I will make such a motion. I move that the minutes be approved as written. And this is Jeffrey Robinson, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Erickson. I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. All right, if we could have the roll call and vote, please. And we're voting to approve the minutes.
So just so I understand, I call all the commissioners that are here again, Marcia.
Yeah, yes, please, if you would, and then we'll each
Sure.
vote separately on our vote for the minute.
Okay, Commissioner Lars Erickson,
Aye.
Commissioner KB Kelly Baroga.
Aye.
Commissioner Everett Maroon,
Aye.
Commissioner Jeffrey Robinson, Jeffrey,
Sorry, my internet lagged. Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Josette Ross,
Aye.
Commissioner Marcia Botzer,
Aye.
Commissioner, Isis,
Aye.
Commissioner Alvaro Figueroa,
Aye.
motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. The motion does pass. All right, we will move now to reports. And I just have a note here before we start there that if one of our committees doesn't have a report to offer, there's no need to step forward at that point. We'll just ask for reports from any commission, any committee of the commission that does have them. So, Co-Chair Commissioner Honan, would you take us through the reports?
Sure. To make it easier on you, Mira, you can just say Commissioner Vienna. I don't use Hanan anymore. Vienna's my maiden name. Thank you all for being patient. Before we go into the commission committee reports, we would love to hear from our executive director and staff around any reports they have. I'm passing it over to our leader, Manny.
Thank you, Co-Chair Vienna. Excuse me. And commissioners, first, I want to thank all of you for the work that you continue to do, not only in the commission and your respective committees, but also in your communities. We do have a little bit of time, so I want to take a little bit of time to say a few things that are not on my report, but I think are important to recognize publicly. And is that the commission is being recognized and the commission is being known, and the work that you all are doing is being recognized. I have been in several meetings where people have mentioned, you know, some of the things that either your committees or you personally as a commissioner are doing, some of the things that they have noticed about actions from the commission. We have been invited to be part of several conversations, important conversations on policy making in our state. Our legislators have been recognizing the work of the commission, not only the 3 legislators that that serve as advisors and that consult with us constantly, but also beyond, you know, the 3 that the 3 legislators that serve on this commission. Other legislators are also paying attention to what the commission is doing and working with us. So this is not my work. This is not the work of the staff. This is not the work of the agency alone. This is the work of each and every one of you. And for your work, I am really thankful. So know that, you know, the community is noticing what we are doing, and I'm really happy to, you know, to hear the feedback that we get from the community, and to know that the commission's work is being recognized. So with that, folk, I wanted to share a couple of highlights from this report that I shared with you, and to give you a couple of updates that didn't make it to the report because they actually happened in May. So I didn't include it on that report, but it's important for you to know. So with some of the highlights that I want to share with you from this report is that we had a very successful panel with experts on the COVID-19 vaccines, and we had medical doctor, a researcher, community organizers, both from Utopia Washington, which is a nonprofit organization, as well as from the Department of Health. And it was absolutely amazing and absolutely wonderful to be able to share with our community and to address some of the concerns that the community has expressed in terms of, you know, the COVID vaccines and accessibility and safety and all that. It was really great. We had a really great panel, and I got feedback after the panel where some healthcare professionals were going to be using that the recording of the video to share with some of the other people that that they have in their facility. So that's good. And in addition to people outside of government using it, the Department of Corrections is also going to be using the recording to encourage both staff and people who are living in prisons to get vaccinated. So, you know, it was a small thing that we did for the community that is having a big impact to make sure that people are safe. And I wanted to share that with you because that part of how many people are sharing it didn't make it to the report. Excuse me. A couple of other things that I wanted to highlight is that we have been working with partner organizations and getting to know some of the organizations that, especially the new organizations that are popping up in the state to serve the LGBTQ community, like Spectrum Spokane, which is one of the newest organizations, and I had the chance to meet with them as well as with other established organizations. I participated of several legislative meetings and conversations. Perhaps the most joyous one was the Black and People of Color Caucuses reception online. That was super fun, and it was a great way of connecting with our legislators of color and get to know them and get to know what they were working on, while at the same time celebrating our community and the diversity that exists in the Washington legislature during this legislative session, the most diverse so far. The other thing that I want to share with you is that the Thurston County Superior Court, the whole system is looking at ways to integrate the recognition of the diversity of genders and expressions into the court system. And this is a huge undertaking, and they have invited the commission to be part of those conversations, and Commissioner Toby Hillmeyer and myself are taking part of those conversations. Is amazing to learn so much about the judicial system and how it works and how complicated it is to actually implement these things and these changes that we take for granted in our world to a system that is so so structured and so formal and so steeped in tradition, right? So we're really excited to start these conversations and this work, because we know that if we do it well, not only is going to have an impact on the people who use the court system in some way or another, but also is going to help other systems to catch up to the times and recognize people's identities and gender expressions, while at the same time keeping safety for the people who are in court. So a couple of other things in terms of internally with the system and the agencies. We have been working with the Office of Equity as they take on and carry on their duty to make Washington more equitable and more inclusive and more respectful. And Dr. J is going to be with us today a little bit later, but it's been really great to work with her and her team. But in addition to that, we have been working very closely with the Department of Corrections and the Department of Children, Youth, and Families on specific issues that are going through their agencies now with members of the LGBTQ community. I cannot share too much information about the issues that are going on, but I wanted to reassure not only the commissioners, but also the community that larger departments like the DOC and the DCYF are looking at the commission to partner with us to make sure that the services that they provide and that the support that they provide to all Washingtonians is relevant and culturally competent. There have been a couple of situations in these two particular departments that they have been able to consult with us to make sure that they manage it the way that it should be, and with the grace and the respect that they need to approach the issue. So I'm really appreciative of the work that they're doing and to partner with us and to actually seek, the input from our agency to make sure that their services are competent and yeah, that LGBTQ folk that they serve feel safe. So that's very important to me, and I just wanted to make that very clear that we have been working with them. I also wanted to share with you that I have shared with Secretary Shaw from the Department of Health our concern that sexual orientation and gender identity data is not being collected as the COVID vaccines are distributed. He assured me that he will be sharing that information with his staff. Hopefully we can address, these data collecting issues, because it's important for us to make sure that we know how our community is being affected and impacted by COVID and by the vaccines. And it would be great for us, obviously, to have data on all that. So I did share that with the secretary, and hopefully we'll be seeing some movement there, but also with any other agency that is not collecting that data. I believe that is important. And finally, the couple of things that I wanted to share with you, one of them did make it to the report, but two other didn't. We have been working with other agencies in specific projects. So for instance, today you will be taking into consideration a proposal by the executive committee to partner with Results Washington to work on their strategic approach to getting results from the agencies in Washington as they serve the community. You'll hear more about that in a second when the proposal is brought to your attention. But in addition to that, two things that happened this month of May is that the commission had been officially appointed to work with the governor's work group on reducing poverty. So as you know, we had a conversation with members of that work group back in November, I believe, or October of last year. We offered them some feedback, especially around the lack of specific voices on that group. And they worked with the legislature and the executive branch to make sure that the commission was officially appointed. My request to the commissioners is to consider being the representative. If this is something that you are interested in, I can offer you more details. We do not have to make the decision right away. I will be attending the first few meetings just to make sure that we know what is happening. And at the same time, we would like to have one or two commissioners be the official representative. So if conversations about reducing poverty in Washington is part of your passion or something that you're doing in your professional life and you can bring that to the conversation, let me know. We can have a conversation. We can have up to 2 commissioners being the official representatives of the commission in that work group. The other invitation that we got, oh my God, and I'm blanking on it. Oof. Actually, no, I did share with you the other one, which was the Thurston County Judicial Group. It's just that the official meeting happened in May, so I thought that I hadn't added to the report. But so those are the two newish involvements that we're going to have with community or with government agencies. Actually 3: Results Washington, the Thurston County Superior Court work group on race, on gender and sexual orientation, and the work of the governor's poverty reduction work group. So any questions or any concerns or anything that you want to ask?
I'm going to go to Commissioner Robinson.
Yes, I was actually about to send you an email. If you need a volunteer to represent the commission on that, I volunteer because poverty reduction is actually a passion of mine. And as someone who's lived in poverty for much of their life, that is something I care very, very, very deeply about, especially in rural communities.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson.
I guess I just a comment. It's Manny, it's great that DLC has been cooperative. I just want to note that there have been countless nonprofit organizations or grassroots organizations that have worked with DLC, right, to better support our transgender diverse communities behind bars, but a lot of that work has been met with resistance and over-policing and over-monitoring. So it's important for them to recognize and respect those identities, but it's also important for them to ensure that these folks have connection to community, especially when they're, you know, when they're behind bars, and especially when they're about to get released. And so that connection is really important, and it's been very difficult when there's so many barriers to reaching folks on the inside. So just want to note that. Also, like around poverty reduction, I feel like a lot of us are not in the business of, I feel like it's less important for us to reduce harm, but more to increase sovereignty when it comes to the autonomy of folks who are living in poverty, right? So I just want to put that out there, and I appreciate all of the work that you've been doing. I too want to volunteer for that and support with Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Vienna. I can say that part of the conversations with the DOC are around integrating, you know, the work that nonprofits have been doing. And in fact, we are, as an agency, we have partnered with, especially with the Disability Rights Washington, which is the one of the nonprofit agencies that is leading the way on conversation with the DOC. And we are not serving as intermediaries, right? We're not like trying to meddle into their work, but partnering with each one of them to make sure that, well, that the DOC understands what the community needs and advocate on behalf of the community. We're also partnered with the Office of the Correction Ombuds, who advocates on behalf of people who are incarcerated. So so my hope, and my real hope in all this work and these conversations, is that transformation comes. And I believe that it is possible, precisely because we now, as a community, have a voice on the table that is on par with every other voice of every other agency, right? So, so I do have hopes. And the approach that we're taking is from that perspective that you just mentioned, of accessibility and not only protecting people inside, but also offering support as they are incarcerated, and to connect them with the services and the community support that they need. So those are part of the conversations, and I really appreciate that you and others have always kept that in mind and kept us, you know, accountable to the mandate that we have, which is to advocate for our community and not to excuse the state on how they approach, or how we as a state approach any of these issues. So thank you.
Thank you, we can move on to our committee reports. And as Madam Co-Chair Botzer mentioned earlier, if there are reports that have not been submitted, we can just have folks feel free to speak up, right, around the committee that they're representing. So I'm going to leave the floor open for those reports.
Are you going to go through the list, or?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Maroon.
Sorry.
We can start with Communications and Outreach Committee.
Okay, I will be very brief because I know that we're short on time and I don't want to go off on some kind of tangent. So focusing in, I'm only going to discuss 4 things really quickly. First and foremost, the Communications and Outreach Committee is going to approve its 1-year operating plan within the next 2 months. Second, we are working on a set of procedures within our committee to onboard new commissioners. We are likely to see some new faces in this coming term. I believe there's at least 1 commissioner that's not planning on applying for their position again. So that naturally means we get a new commissioner. So just making sure that we're figuring out how to create a welcoming and warm environment where we help people to start with the wind at their back on day 1. The newsletter is in circulation seems to be doing well. We will be having another edition. Katie, our amazing staff member, is helming that project. Please, if you've been asked to write an article, get your article in ASAP. And if Katie wants to take a moment to say something really quickly about it, I would welcome her to do so. And then the final thing, and I'm sure she'll chime in when and if she feels she wants to, the final thing is just that the Communications and Outreach Committee is also really looking at how we're looking at theme months. For example, this month is AAPI History Month. This is a big deal. And so we're looking at the specific important moments in each month, if that makes sense. I am now done. I hope that was as quick as advertised. And I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I'll pop in here and say that my last day is going to be on Friday, and then I'm headed off to summer. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's just helped me through this journey. It's been really beneficial for me. And I presented yesterday to the Gender and Career Studies faculty here at UPS, and I hope they got across how excited I was about how this internship has gone and for future students. And the newsletter should be going out soon then. I'm excited about that. So yeah, as Jeffrey said, I could get those articles in. I would very much appreciate it. And I just want to say a final thank you to everyone here. You have all really impacted my life.
Thank you, Katie. I too want to thank you for all of the support you've given and all of the laughter and the smiles that and the jokes. So we appreciate your support, and I'm sure this won't be the last time we interface, right, in this work. Thank you, Commissioner Robinson, for that, for being efficient in your report out. We're going to move on to the Economic and Business Development Committee. Okay, moving on to the Children, Youth, and Families Committee.
Hi, everyone. I will try to be even briefer than Commissioner Robinson and just say that we have done a bit of work around education of like two-way education of foster relationships. So folks who want to foster LGBTQ youth but aren't themselves in that community. And also what can the foster system do to be more meet the needs of LGBTQ youth who are in the program. And then I continue to get phone calls when something goes wrong at a regional public school. So Manny and I connected a while back about a student in a middle school in Walla Walla who was not allowed to use the restroom that comported with their gender identity. That situation, he put me in touch with the Ombuds office, and Carrie, the executive of the Ombuds office, was wonderful in supporting, the family. However, I did just learn in the last week, which I'll bring up in the next call with the committee, that now that student's being hyper surveilled by the administration of the middle school. So there still seems to be some work to do. I've also heard from the folks who run Q Law, which is based in Seattle, that they want to have more of a presence on the east side of the state. And so they're happy to do things like write, angry attorney letters. So I think that's something probably we need to talk about more generally at a future overall commission meeting. What do we want to do in terms of accepting help from third parties or outside groups or advocacy groups who want to, and they might not be a single issue focus. They might be capable of working on multiple issues with us. So we don't want to, I know we get into ethics issues and questions and endorsements and, are we endorsing a particular business or that kind of thing. So I think we need to sort of talk that out. So I'll just raise that. now. But and then if I'll just jump in on health and wellness and say there's been, if you don't mind, Madam Co-Chair, and just say that last notes that I can recall on that committee, we're still concerned about some of the prior authorization requirements around HIV. I did attend a meeting at the Department of Health that talked about overall pressures from the pandemic on everybody's mental health. At this point, Washington State, and I don't know if everybody knows this, 100% of Washingtonians are estimated to meet the criteria for adjustment disorder. And 85% of Washingtonians are estimated to meet the criteria for generalized anxiety disorder. So these are things that, you know, if we're talking about LGBTQ populations and communities and people, are probably, you know, weighing on us more. But everybody's affected right now. So health and wellness, I know I appreciate the work that they've been trying to do around support for people who are very vulnerable, who require HIV medication, and who now are going to face prior authorization, potentially on a repeat basis if they move from one pharmacy to another, as many homeless people do from 1 month to the next. So I know Manny was in conversations with folks about some other remediations for that, that move by a healthcare authority.
And I do have an update on that. And just to
Well,
clarify,
I'm done.
we are still on health and wellness committee. So children,
Yeah.
youth already did, and then Commissioner Maroon moved us to health and wellness, just to make sure that everybody's following. But an update on the HIV medications that didn't make it to the to the report because it hasn't been approved yet. But the legislature actually included a proviso on the budget, on the state budget, for empowering this commission to gather the groups of stakeholders, which includes the Department of Health, the HCA, as well as community organizations that are working on HIV access, HIV medication access, and people who are currently living with HIV or AIDS. So the commission is actually now tasked, well, if this budget is signed by the governor as it was approved, the commission will be gathering a group of stakeholders to work on solutions to this. And we have been granted a certain amount of money to do that work. And the HCA has been, granted the monies that they said that it would take for them to actually accomplish this. So there should be no excuse on anybody's part to actually take action on these and support Washingtonians who are currently living with HIV or AIDS. So that's great news. I will send a note to the whole commission once that the budget is approved with more information. And I have already met with stakeholders, people living with HIV and HIV providers, HIV nonprofit providers. And I have another meeting this week to start planning the map on how the project is going to, to pan out, so we can actually, hit the road, as soon as the budget is approved. So that's the update on that, and I'm actually really happy with how this came to be. And sometimes the bill doesn't make it out of committee, but the legislature knows how to put it there. So, and that's what they did with this budget proviso.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see that the HIV funding request from DOH was fully funded by the legislature as well, and it's I think about $26 million going into the next cycle. So that is at least as much as they had before, if not a little bit more. So that's good.
Thank you, Commissioner Maroon. I'm curious, Manny, is DLH working with like folks around housing, right? I can imagine how difficult it is for folks to have to like, or where people don't, like it's the least of their problems to worry about HIV medication when they are worried about a roof over their heads or their basic needs being met.
They do have funding in their Ryan White. I mean, as a HIV organization leader, I'll say that there's a couple ways that the state is trying to support folks who are living with HIV and AIDS around housing, and one is through the Ryan White program itself. So there's money in people's contracts to be able to supply rental support. And then there's the federal through housing and urban development, there's the HOPWA program, which is housing opportunities for people living with HIV. And the rules are a little, they have some very low maximums on income. So I find it kind of hard to work with HOPWA a little bit. If you're, even earning under 400% or 300% of the federal poverty limit, you can't qualify. So, sometimes those housing programs sort of force people into a very low income bracket in order to receive the assistance, which is not a good position for people to be in. So the Ryan White money is a little bit better because it's got a higher cap on income, but there's obviously less money available through that. But I think it's good at extending other housing program support. It's not great at being the sole source of housing support for an individual. But there is an attempt on the part of the state to get folks housed.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's why we have you here. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Going to move on to the Black, Indigenous, People of Color Committee.
Hi. The BIPOC committee has struggled a little bit over the last couple months to find a time that works for all of our committee members to meet. So we're still working on clarifying a day that we can meet regularly and meet quorum. So we've had a little bit of a pause, but hoping to get that nailed down soon and then move forward with some of our objectives. We talked about creating a mission statement for the committee to guide our work. We talked about doing a youth outreach event, virtual youth outreach event. So we're hoping to get that planned. And then I wanted to share a celebration. I know some of you heard that the Nisqually Tribal Council passed a resolution last month in support of an annual Two-Spirit LGBTQ Pride Day at Nisqually. And then after that happened, Manny shared with me that I believe we're only the 4th tribal nation in the country to do so. And after a little bit of research, 3 of those tribal nations are here in Washington State. So I would like to look into providing some more support and encouragement to local tribes to release those statements of support. It's a really visible and powerful, impactful way that we can support our Two-Spirit brothers and sisters. So some things that we're looking forward to in the future. So hopefully we'll be moving forward with those soon. Thank you.
Co-Chair Vienna, the vulnerable communities didn't make it to the list on the slides, but if you want, I can give a quick update.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. So the Vulnerable Communities Committee has met a couple of times, and I am pleased to report that the request for $1 million support for the LGBT senior housing project in Seattle was made it to the budget. We are expecting the governor to not veto it. So we are very certain that it's going to be implemented as part of the budget. So we're really happy about that. And with that, if you do want to send a note to the governor's office, you can do so in support of keeping that there. The income projections are better than they were going to be. So there's no reason for us not to do that. And I have shared with the governor's office that the commission fully supports that appropriation of $1 million for that project. So that's one of the big celebrations that we have for that committee at this time. So really happy to to look at that. And then a couple of other things that I wanted to just update people on is that Mira actually put together a list of the bills that were approved that were part of our priority list. So that is on your packet that I sent out. So please look at them, make sure that people are aware of the expansion of rights for LGBTQ community. And with that, I am trying to coordinate with Legal Voice, which was the organization that actually drafted the legislation for insurance discrimination against trans folk. So we are trying to organize and coordinate a kind of a virtual celebration of the signing of that bill. Currently, the governor is not signing bills in person, but some legislators have and community organizations have been able to kind of create a virtual celebration as he signs those virtually, right? So hopefully we'll be able to pull it off. If not, who knows? But at least, we're going to have more protections for the trans community. And we are planning on having educational events throughout the summer to let people know of the laws that were passed this session and how they affect their lives. And that includes all the priorities that we had. And in addition to that, to point out something that Jeffrey shared during the communications and outreach update is that we are also coordinating with the Commission on Asian and Pacific Islander American Affairs to host a panel to talk about anti-Asian hate crimes and how it affects the LGBTQ community. We're just waiting for confirmation from the participants, and hopefully that'll happen the last week of May. So we have the 2 weeks to announce and let people know about it. And along with that, it'll be the release of our statement that the executive committee has approved on our statement on LGBT, on anti-Asian and anti-Pacific Islander hate. So just watch out for that, because the announcement should come out this week about that panel along with the statement. So that's all the updates for all the committees, I believe.
Thank you. And yeah, I also want to lift up for that piece of legislation some of the organizations that were involved: Utopia Washington, Trans Women of Color Solidarity Network, our representatives or legislators, Mark Olias and Nicole Macri. So I want to name that. Legal Voice, with the support of many individuals and organizations, helped make that possible. Thank you everyone for the updates. We don't have any legislative updates right now, right? Okay, so moving on to new business, I am going to pass it over to Madam Co-Chair Botzer to lead us on that. Or I can keep going. So regarding new business, want to open up, do we have any committee action items to vote on from our respective committees?
I believe Commissioner Botzer was on mute and meant to be unmuted.
Yes. Fascinating this late in the game, but thank you. Just saying that this is a section that this time co-chairs and full commission can work on. We want to talk about anything new in terms of business to be introduced, and we do actually have one item that we want to discuss, and it has to do with a recommendation from executive committee that we become part of or associate ourselves in some way with the Results Washington project. And at this point, I would invite Manny to say a few words about this project so that we can have a better understanding of what we're deciding here.
Thank you, Co-Chair Butzer. You received on your packet a set of slides that Results Washington provided for us to review and make sure that we made the right decision on this. So in summary, Results Washington is a state agency that looks at the whole system, the whole enterprise, and offers recommendations on how to best provide services. And it partners with every single one of the agencies that provide services to Washingtonians in Washington, right? And outside of Washington too, by the way. But one of the things that they want to do is to formalize these partnerships and to work on specific issues and invite different agencies that have some projects on work on those issues to actually offer input on what the outcomes should be, so we have an enterprise-wide clarity, right, on how the agencies are going to provide services and how they are going to measure success, and that not that every agency has their own things going on without talking to each other, right? So Results Washington basically is an assessment agency that looks at the whole enterprise to make sure that everybody's doing what we're supposed to be doing and that we have a common goal. So with that, they have 5 areas that they are focusing on. You have access to those slides that I shared with you. It was slide 18. And they are asking us to formally be part of those conversations. There are 3 levels of involvement. This is important because this is the decision that you have to make today. There are 3 levels of involvement. One is to be a lead agency for that particular issue. Those lead agencies usually are agencies that work directly on those issues. For instance, one of the issues is education. And obviously, you know, there are agencies that work directly with education. So they're asking those agencies to partner with Results Washington and be the lead agency on that particular issue and gather feedback and offer, you know, goals and do research and all that. The second level of involvement is associated or affiliated agencies. Those are agencies that within their services touch a little bit on that particular issue, but don't necessarily offer that service directly. So for education, for instance, you know, the Department of Corrections that we were talking about, right? They do have some educational services, but that is not their main goal. So they can be partner agencies without being the lead agency. And then the third level of involvement is for agencies to be informed. Those are agencies that are willing to not only receive updates, but also to be basically on call to offer feedback on the issues because they have something to say about that particular issue. So that is the level of involvement that we, as well, that the executive committee is suggesting that the commission has, is to be an agency that is informed of what is happening. And then in addition to that, to empower each one of our committees to make the decision on whether or not you as a committee want to be involved with one of the 5 areas more fully. So if you want to be what they are calling a consultant agency, right? So there's the lead agency, the consultant agency, and the informed agency. The executive committee is recommending that we as a commission today vote on being an informed agency that receives that periodically. And in addition, to empower the committees to make the decision if your committee wants to be wants to represent the commission as a consulting agency on a particular issue of the 5 that are presented on the slide. I hope that made sense and that you know and that you had the chance to review the slides and know a little bit more about how the work is being done.
So we can have a discussion on this. Yes, Commissioner Maroon.
Okay, just
yes, go ahead.
I read the slide deck. So thank you. Thank you for recognizing me, Madam Co-Chair. So Manny, you're saying that the status 1, 2, or 3 applies to all 5 areas, right?
The recommendation is yes.
Then there's the question about committees and what they want to do within particular areas.
Yes.
Okay. But the status is for the whole kit caboodle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So further discussion among us, and then we would ask for a motion if someone wants to bring it. Oh, yes, Commissioner Robinson.
Sorry, I was trying to do the raise hand feature because I'm trying to get the hang of Zoom. I guess my question would be, why wouldn't we go for the leading agency one? I mean, we're a dynamic group of people. We've done extraordinary work. And frankly, when you have people like who we have on this commission that are able to speak to the different and diverse perspectives, I mean, let's look at ISIS's comments alone. That ISIS has spoken on areas that frankly get almost no attention and hasn't been afraid to express to all of us, you know, that we need to pay more attention to that. And we've all had moments like that. Everett's done it. You've done it, Chair Botzer. I think that we're selling ourselves a little short by going with consulting. I think that we actually, judging by what I saw on the slides, this seems like a really great organization. And I think we have the real choice we need to make is, do we dive in with both feet and we acknowledge that we came into this commission for a reason and we kick ass and we've got a lot of good stuff to offer? Or do we settle for the silver medal and we just do what's easy? One of the reasons I'm on here is because I know I'm going to be uncomfortable. Been uncomfortable quite a few times on this commission. And God bless you all. I wouldn't change it for the world. Let's make people uncomfortable. Let's get shit done. Let's go for the lead. Why the hell not?
See that?
I can thank you, Commissioner Robinson, and I want to honor your passion and your perspective. And one of the reasons why I, as the director, would not recommend to go as lead agency on any of them is because, well, for 2 reasons. One is resources. That does require for me to be on every meeting of each one of those areas, and that's 5 areas, 5 meetings of more than 4 hours a month for each one of the areas with the other agencies, and that is a representation that cannot be done by a commissioner. It has to be a staff member from the agencies. That's why when you see that most of the agencies are large agencies that have whole departments on policy and things like that that do have the resources. And then the other part of that, of not recommending to be lead agency on that, is because we don't provide any direct services on any of the areas, but we do have something to say about services provided on each one of the areas, right? So so that was the other reason why the recommendation was to be, you know, informed and then give the authorities the power to the committees to decide how much involvement they wanted to do on each one of the areas. So I hope that clarifies. And at the end of the day, the decision is for you as a commission to decide how involved you want to be.
Thank you, Manny. I will say that I'm in full support of what Commissioner Robinson brought up. At times it feels like we are just here on consultative role, but I feel like we can do this if we commit to being a leading agency in this work. Then we need to work harder at bringing in community members and nonprofit grassroots organizations doing that work into making sure that their voices will be heard, because a lot of times the supporting agencies they have the expertise, but they're taking from the knowledge that is of our communities doing the work. So I wanna see it, and there's a lot of many different goal areas there, but I see how all of these areas can connect under goal 4, right? You can't have a healthy and safe community if government isn't efficient, effective, and accountable to community. And having a healthy and safe community is having all of those other goals involved. So I feel like we can do a better job of coming up with different innovative ways of doing this work, right? And I understand that you're doing a lot of it, but that's why we're here. We're the biggest commission there is. And so I don't see why we couldn't lead some of that work.
Okay, further discussion, and let me see if I understand this. If we did decide on the top level, we'd be committing our executive director to 16 additional hours of meetings and so on. It might change our whole structure, but that's up to us. So further discussion, please.
I'll just go ahead and say that I am sad that we barely made quorum today. And that I know people are doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And we're doing work in committees, and committees are kind of, we're at that year plus point. Maybe we need to think about chairs of our committees and those kinds of things. What we really don't seem to have a lot of is process. Everyone has been so deferential to everyone else on the commission, which is really sweet and nice, and I appreciate, and we don't have a ton of conflict, but I remain concerned about how we are setting up this commission in future years. What if we do have people on who are legislative advisors who don't even want us to exist? Some other commissions are dealing with that. We have not protected ourselves at all as a commission. We have not protected our committees from interference. I think that there's a lot of work for us to do just as commissioners to try and set ourselves up better. When we get to new business, I'm going to propose an idea. And I think, I agree. I don't want us to just be consultative. I know we don't have enforcement authority for anything, but I would like to see us work on reinforcing what power we do have, what authority we do have, and ensuring that we're really much more than a symbolic gesture on the part of the governor's office and the legislature, that we are out there making real change across the entire state, not just on the I-5 corridor, and for people who are living everywhere in Washington. So I don't know that I would feel comfortable making a stand about the work of our commission via another party that's not entirely in our control, as well organized as it looks. I'd suggest that we make sure that there's teeth to the work that we're doing, that and in an in-house way, if that makes sense. So I don't think we need to be level one on this particular thing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else?
This is Commissioner Erickson. I would say, I have some experience working with Results Washington in my role at working for a state agency. And I work for a pretty large state agency, and we're not a lead agency on any of the goals. And it is, even for a consulting and supporting state agency, it's still a pretty big lift to be participating in these forums. So I do worry about Manny's resources and the whole team and being able to, be fully engaged. But I definitely understand where Commissioner Vienna and Commissioner Robinson and your points, and really, to move the dial, we need to be there. We need to be in the room, and we need to be part of those conversations. I just don't know if we're ready at this point to be a lead agency. Again, I work for a state agency, and this isn't comparable. I totally understand. But, we have teams of people that do the consulting and support work on other issues. And we don't have that level of resources to commit as, an agency that has multi-billion-dollar a year budget. So I do question that, and that's my concern. I'll just leave that there.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. I'm curious, Manny, are there resources or funding that Results Washington can provide in order to support folks who come to the table to do this work?
No, because it's well, yeah, no. And the other thing is that we actually had to have conversations with them to allow the commissions, in plural, to allow the commissions to appoint commissioners who are not state employees to the different work groups and all that on each one of the areas. So I understand, the position and the need to be in all of these conversations. And, there are certain, bureaucratic parts of these that are hard to, to jump. And I also, again, I want to affirm that it is your decision as a commission to what extent you want to be involved in these projects, and is going to have repercussions on the type of work that we're able to do as a commission. So I just to clarify all that, so you vote according to your conscience and understanding what the results of the votes are going to be. So yeah, and we also have a good relationship already with Results Washington. So it's not, we're not going to be building from scratch. There's already a relationship between us and Results Washington, because they do come to us to find answers to questions or to consult with us. So yeah. Also, Co-Chair Butzer, I just want to recognize that Dr. Karen Johnson joined us, and we do have the scheduled conversation with the Office of Equity. So just to make sure that we are aware of that and the time.
Thank you very much for that reminder. Let us do our business here and continue with this question. Are we ready for a motion, or is there more discussion? And if we're ready for a motion, which we would vote one way or the other on the adoption of a position in the third tier that was recommended. If anyone wants to bring that motion, please do so.
I move that we accept, sorry, Co-Chair. I move that we accept the executive
please go ahead.
Recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Erickson, I second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I do have one comment. This is Commissioner Figueroa, just to make. I just want to state that there's clearly a lot of passion with the commissioners that are here today. I know we have about half of our commissioners missing, so we're missing half of the passion that's behind this work, right? So I just want to do a friendly reminder that I know that we're all very interested, invested in seeing results in our state and our communities. With this recommendation, I just want to remind everyone that this is, this can be a step into being fully vested in being a lead, right? So I don't think this has an expiration date. I don't think there's a deadline for this. So that's just a friendly reminder that I agree with a lot of the comments that were made by other commissioners. I think we are limited on resources, and then we are limited as commissioners ourselves. I mean, just as an example, we miss meetings frequently, and I'm included in that, so I'm part of the problem. We are late to meetings as well. So if we want to be fully vested in this and make this a really great partnership, we just want to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable, because I don't want to, personally, on behalf of the commission, I don't want to have a bad perception from other people on us because we're not there at the table when we said we are going to be involved. So I agree that I want to go full throttle, but I think we need to get our stuff together. I think we need to refine our process and have those expectations set so we are successful. So I fully agree with everyone's comments, but I think this is a step-by-step process. It's not a, we're going to do it, light the fire, and then, fail. And I don't want to fail. So fully support it. Just, I think we need to bite what we can chew and not, take more on than what we can. So That's just my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I would like to add, adding on to what Alvaro said, yes, there is half the passion here, and I feel like us moving into voting is premature, right? And when we set out to have conversations around how decisions are made, the way we're voting today is the opposite of what we wanted, which was more of a collective effort, right? And I feel like, yes, people are late, people are not showing up, but also we're going through a global pandemic where people are dealing with so much loss, right? Where people aren't even, there's still people who don't even believe that that this virus exists. And I will excuse like people who don't show up because we don't know what folks are going through. And I want to honor that for us who are at the table, we're doing this work in formal and informal ways, right? This work doesn't end when we clock out or so. I want to honor that we're dealing with like this work as far as the government is concerned. It doesn't honor all of the things that make us people, right? It's just honors what we're showing up to the table as being paid, right? It doesn't honor us as daughters or people dealing with family members who may be going through, who may be dealing with cancer and just loss. And so I also want to name that it's okay if folks are late and if folks aren't showing up because we don't know what's going on with them in their lives, right? So I will say that I'm not in support of having this decision made today. I also want to name that on this document as a responsible, accountable agency, how DLC is involved in every area except for climate change, when we know that mass incarceration has a huge impact on the climate crisis. So I feel like we still need a bit more time to go through all of these documents and to have more of a full, robust conversation around how we want to be involved.
Thank you. We do have a motion on the floor. You can vote either way on it, but we do need to deal with this motion. Let's go ahead and call the vote. Vote as you desire. Staff, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioner Erickson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly Baroga.
Aye.
Commissioner Maroon.
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson.
No.
Commissioner Ross.
Aye.
Commissioner Botzer.
Aye.
Commissioner Vienna.
No.
And Commissioner Figueroa.
Aye.
Motion. Only 2 votes against. 3.
All right, thank you. The motion passes. We are still in new business, and I believe Commissioner Maroon had business.
Well, I am happy to write this up. I think I talked with Manny a little bit about this. You all may recall that I was not happy with our election at the last meeting because of process. And I hate getting stuck on process stuff, but I do. So it was never about any of the fellow commissioners. I think you're all incredible people. But I was very concerned about the precedent of not going out to the other commissioners, asking for interest ahead of the meeting about, the election on executive committee, having people standing for election who were not in attendance at the meeting itself, having people standing for election without knowing what the term was that they were being elected to. These are things that we should clear up as a commission. These are things that we should all have written down rules for these. So I was going to propose a process committee, which sounds as boring as anything. But basically to take a look at what kinds of processes and procedures or do other boards and commissions in the state of Washington and even other states, what do they operate on? Do we like any of their ideas? How can we kind of nail down an election process for ourselves and vote on it so that we all kind of know going into the next one what we're looking at, but not just about elections to the commission. How do we want to handle how the committees are meeting? Do we just want everyone to have their own rules on these different committees, or do we want to maybe think about, I'm not trying to lock people into things, but just be able to have some conversations with each other about trying to come up with some more process. And if this is something the executive committee is currently working on, I'm in full support of you all doing it. But if it's not because you're doing other things, then maybe we could start thinking about a process committee so that in the infancy of our commission, we can try and come up with some working rules that we all think are fair and equitable and inclusive, and that will help us going forward. Because someday all of us here are not going to be on this commission, and we need to be thinking about how are we going to be replaced in a fair way. So that was just kind of my idea. I'm happy to put it up for a motion today, or I'm happy to table it to our next meeting when we have more commissioners present. And if you want me to write up my thoughts, I'm happy to do that too.
Well, let's quickly discuss that and see where we want to go. Do we want you to write them up for next meeting? That would be one option. A comment or two, and then let's make a decision here. Anyone?
And Commissioner Robinson is trying to speak.
I recommend.
Oh, please go ahead. Sorry.
My apologies, Chair Botzer. I think I just talked over you. There's a mild lag, so I can never see when someone can see me. Okay, so I think that the best interest would be instead of just arbitrarily adding another committee, that we refer to this as a select committee, that a motion be made for this committee to operate between our two meetings and come up with a list of processes and recommendations by our next meeting that we would then approve with a suitable amount of time for the individual commissioners to review the documents, because I agree with a comment that your co-chair made a little bit ago. We want to make sure that we're giving people enough time to review the materials for these meetings. So I think that's the direction we need to go. I think Everett Maroon, wow, Freudian slip there. Everett Maroon is absolutely right on this one. I just think that would be the best process to do what he's asking us to do.
Commissioner Robertson, does that look like updates or like evaluation of those processes every period, every quarter? Like, what does that look like?
Well, for the one, I am so sorry. I have dogs in my house that are barking. Human moments. So one moment. Sorry, I had to use the scary voice, and I don't really want my fellow commissioners hearing the triggering scary voice I can generate. Anyway, so what that would actually look like is, for the moment, you would have all of these procedures written up. Next, when we get to our next meeting, you as a commissioner would make a motion setting a period of review, like every 6 months, once a year, you review all of these processes. So that would be part of the motion you'd make at the next meeting. The initial motion you want to make at this one is just to set this thing up and get it moving. And part of the process that would go forward is that at the next meeting, you would set it in stone. The commission would have to vote on it, hold its feet to the fire, that there is a review period so that we're not using the same rule book over and over again. Did I explain that well, or? Sorry, the dogs threw me off.
Yeah.
Commissioner Maroon, would you make that motion, or is that to your purpose?
Sure, I'm happy to make a motion to construct a select committee to operate between this meeting and our next full commission meeting to make some or draft some recommendations for an election process for the LGBTQ Commission.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I think we've had sufficient discussion, but is there any? Hearing none, would we have the roll call vote, please, on the motion?
Sure. Commissioner Erickson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly Baroga,
Aye.
Commissioner Maroon,
Oh, heck, aye.
Commissioner Robinson, Commissioner Robinson.
Heck
Maybe a little
yes.
Commissioner Ross. Commissioner Ross.
Aye.
Okay, we'll come. Okay. Commissioner Botzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Vienna,
Aye.
and Commissioner Figueroa.
Aye.
Very good.
Unanimous.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Respective time, may we introduce our guest and proceed with that part, or is there any further important, pressing, what's all important, pressing business?
Co-Chair
not,
Botzer,
I would invite Manny. Yes.
I would suggest that people who are interested in being part of this committee reach out to me so we can actually have people on that committee. Just because we didn't get to talk about who and all that. But please, those of you who might be interested, there's no size of this committee. So whomever is interested, please let me know. We'll send out a note to the rest of the commission so they know. And if you can send me your interest on being on this committee by this Wednesday, that would be fantastic, so we can find a time to meet and all that. Okay, just so you know.
Very good. And so would you be able to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Karen Johnson. She goes by Dr. J and uses she and her pronouns. And I am delighted to be working with Dr. Johnson. I am delighted to have her as part of the governor's team. We've had many great conversations, and I had the honor of being part of the panel that interview the people that are currently working with her as executive assistants, and we've had a lot of fun. And Dr. Johnson, we really appreciate your attendance to this meeting and your availability to work with us and to share with us some of your ideas and to hear the feedback from the commission. And we also want to thank you for your flexibility. It is a business meeting, and we share about this. So, you know, sometimes we need to take time to do our business. So thank you so much for your patience and for your flexibility with us. But now the floor is yours, and we have slides with the information that you sent. So hopefully we can move along with this. Just let us know when we need to switch something. But welcome.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Commission, the LGBTQ Commission, and Director Manny. I was listening to your conversation because I showed up on time. I wasn't eavesdropping, and my heart is heavy right now in listening to the conversation that you had, because in many ways, many of the ethnic commissions, Women's Commission, to some degree, perhaps this office is in the same position. And while we do want to lead, while we do want to protect ourselves to make sure that our voices are heard, that we're fully included in how government works, and we want to get stuff done, Commissioner Robertson, I kind of edited your word there. My heart is still heavy because Manny and Omar can't be in every place all the time. You have lives to live and cannot be with us each and every day in the operation of state government. And so for the, I guess, hour, how much time do I have? Do I still have an hour, Manny?
Yes, an hour.
An hour. I would like to provide an opportunity for you to be with us each and every day in how we conduct our business in state government by just spending this next 60 minutes to speak your truth clearly, boldly, proudly, so that it can be captured and incorporated in our state's 5-year equity strategic plan. Now, normally I have a totally different opening, yet I'm with you all now, so we're just gonna get to it. Manny sent you a survey link. Has anyone completed that survey yet? Thumbs up, thumbs up. For those of you who have not, thank you for those of you who have. If someone has the link and can open it now and capture some of what we say, I think this is going to be important. And here's why. The responses to the survey link are coming into my office, and we're going to roll those up into the strategic plan. And in listening to you today, I suspect that there are probably some things that need to be said in response to these questions that you want to capture today to make sure that they are in our state's equity strategic plan, and as well as inform our outcome measures, so that whether you're able to attend meetings, whether Manny and Omar are able to be at 1,000 places at once, it really won't matter, because it'll be part of our true north, part of how we're going to reframe state government to work in a way that reduces disparities and improves equitable and just outcomes for everyone in Washington for the next 7 generations and beyond. And so I thank you for being part of the village today, because this is all of our work, as you know. And the Office of Equity stands to the ready to ensure that we do what we can do to make sure that there is indeed equity and justice for all in this state. We were created in April of 2020 by the legislature when they realized, learned, saw that the demographics of the state have been becoming increasingly more racially and ethnically diverse over the last several decades. And as these demographics changed, they also saw and looked at and reviewed data that indicated that people from historically and currently marginalized identity groups still don't have the same opportunities to reach parity as their non-marginalized counterparts, largely white cisgender males, across nearly every measure, including education, poverty, employment, health, and more. And that these inequities were based on race, ethnicity, gender, and other characteristics that continue to be deep, pervasive, and persistent. And they're coming at great economic and social cost, as I think it was Commissioner Vienna was saying in describing why people may or may not be able to show up. So they set a mission for our office, which is to promote access to equitable opportunities and resources that reduce disparities and improve outcomes statewide across government. So today, I thank you. My office, we're asking for your collective wisdom to help us create this 5-year equity strategic plan that helps Washington to bridge these opportunity gaps and reduce disparities so everyone flourishes and achieves their full potential. And there really is equity, and justice for all. And so before I ask you for your names and in 25 words or less, to just kind of share with me where you are in your anti-racist journey, I do want to say for the record that while this office is tasked with leading with race, we certainly are working to dismantle racism and oppression in every form throughout state government. So I just want to say that up front. And I also want to say that Executive Director Santiago has just been an incredible thought partner, an incredible partner in this work, an incredible leader in this work. And I'm just so delighted to have an opportunity to meet the wind beneath his wings as he leads us into becoming a more fully inclusive, anti-racist, multicultural state government. So kudos to you, my friend. So with that, it's 11:35. We have about 55 minutes left or so. So real quickly, if you would just introduce yourselves to me, please, and let me know your name and in 25 words or less, where are you on your anti-racist journey? This is not your life story, but it's more than one word, but less than 25. Who'd like to begin?
This is Commissioner Erickson. I guess since I was first in the roll call, I feel obligated to go first here. I'm going to say from the survey, I feel I have 1 foot in performing and 1 foot in transforming. And that's because of my work and my colleagues. And we committed to this discussion 4 or 5 years ago. And we've leaned in the last year and making it a top priority and demonstrating it in our daily lives and participating in pushing discussions.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. So 1 foot in performing and transforming. Thank you. Who's next?
As the next person on the roll call list, I think I should go next. My name is KB, and I use they, them pronouns. Finding it hard to just select like one of those 3 things because I find myself in developing, performing, and transforming. As my day job also includes elevating the voices of young LGBTQ folks, but also there are a lot of things that I have learned that I'm trying to unlearn.
Okay, so Commissioner Barago, pronounce your last name for me, please. You're on mute.
Kelly Baroga.
Baroga, thank you. So you're on a journey. Yeah, thank you. Who's next?
Well, I'm next on the roll call. But I also feel like I talked a lot this meeting, so I won't talk long. My name is Everett Maroon, not Moron. I put myself as transforming, and I kind of had a hard time doing that. I will probably, because I don't want anyone to think that I think I know it all, and I'm always learning. And what I said in my survey response last night was, I'm trying to kind of work on transforming the institutions around me and within which I work in public health and other advocacy organizations. And I'm also trying to like lift up and signal boost people of color who don't typically have a lot of space in the spaces that I'm in, like public health and advocacy organizations. So, ironically enough, knowing when to shut up is also an anti-racist strategy.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Maroon. Transforming. Who's next?
I can go. I don't know where I am on the list.
Okay.
Hello, Dr. J. My name is Ayatsupu Vienna. I would say I am in transforming, also naming that we're always learning. And I work in philanthropy, where my role there is to move resources from philanthropy to our communities that need the support. So I thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Commissioner Vienna. Transforming. Who's next?
I can go next. This is Commissioner
Oh,
Figueroa.
this is Marcia.
Okay.
And I'm kind of mixed also between developing and transforming. I think I'm leaning more towards transforming just with a lot of the different organizations I'm involved in, and I'm also always learning, and I enjoy hearing perspectives from other people and kind of using that in my work. So transforming.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Figueroa. Transforming. Who's next?
So this is Marcia Botzer. She and her co-chair, performing, activism, and starting organizations since the 1960s.
Performing,
Ongoing.
activism, and starting organizations since the 1960s. Yes, Co-Commissioner Botzer, ongoing. Thank you. Who's next?
I don't really know where I am on the roll. I should know this. Jeffrey
just-
Robinson. Go ahead.
Well, just where are you? Where are you?
Learning and struggling because I have autism and I'm a member of the disability community. And for the last 3 weeks, I've been struggling with trauma related to that and feeling left behind. So trying to process all of that in this context.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. So you're finding your way, learning, growing, struggling. Sounds like that caterpillar in that cocoon on the way to becoming a butterfly. Thank you. Who's next?
Hello, my name is Josette. I am an Indigenous woman from the Nisqually tribe here in Olympia, and I would say that I am in a learning phase for anti-racist work. Primarily, my work centers around advocating and working to advance the rights for Indigenous people here in the state and educating people, making our voice heard.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Learning. And I'm sitting in your Indigenous homeland here in Thurston County. Thank you. Who's next?
So all the commissioners went, and I would invite both Mira and Katie to share. I'll share as well. So I would say that I am on the journey. I don't think that I am there. I am learning, I am growing, and open to being challenged and grow through that challenging and interaction with others.
Okay. Thank you, Executive Director Manny. Learning and growing. Willing to keep growing and work through the challenges. Okay. Who's next? You said there were two more, Katie or Myra?
Mira.
Mira, thank you.
I am performing, but also I never stop learning. So that would be what I would say.
Okay. Learning and performing. Okay. And that leaves Katie.
Yep, that would be me. As a student, I think that I am performing by causing a little chaos here on campus. But of course, learning every single day. And like Mira said, I think that's going to be a lifelong journey. And I know I'm probably the youngest person in the room here. So I've got quite a lot of learning to go.
Okay. Well, what's important is that you're on the journey. Thank you, Katie. Learning. All right, Manny, next slide, please. All righty. So I'm glad that we're talking about this question. In your conversation around Results Washington, you pretty much have decided how you're going to weigh in on the other question that would have spoken to the agencies. For the next few minutes, I would like for you to imagine with me, and if you feel comfortable closing your eyes or getting in a place of imagination, that's fine. But imagine that we're actually living in an anti-racist, fully inclusive, multicultural Washington, where everyone flourishes and achieves their full potential for the common good. There is indeed liberty and justice for all. There is indeed equity and justice for all. And all are indeed created equal and living out their right to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What specifically do you see? What does that look like to you to be living in this state where there's equity and justice for all? Every human being in this state. What does that look like to you? What do you see?
I can share. Granted, all of these things, I can see myself not working at a nonprofit organization and probably doing something fun, because I wouldn't need to have a job where I'm constantly addressing, the hardships of queer youth. But that's what I see, is just me doing something that's fun, and I'm not having to think of all of the lives of the people I know. But yeah, I see myself, like, it's really like cheesy, but like it's a rain pop of color, nothing gloomy. But yeah, I do believe that anything is, well, the dismantling of white supremacy is possible. So I hold on to that a lot. It's just seeing that like brightness and not needing to work where I work and not needing to have certain organizations. That's the goal.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Baroga. Who's next? What specifically does this look like to you? What do you see?
This is Commissioner Figueroa. I'll go next. So for me, and I think a lot of the people that I work with and friends and family, things like that, what that would look like is I wouldn't need to defend who I am as, like an American is a good example during the elections. I wouldn't have to defend how American I am. And then I also wouldn't have to defend myself just being gay and identifying with the LGBTQ community all the time. So I think it would be nice to no longer have to answer that question or have to prove myself to be something just because I'm a different color or my sexuality is different. So, and I know I share that with a lot of the people in Eastern Washington and of course Western Washington, but that's what my ideal vision would be like.
Thank you, Commissioner Figueroa. And did you put that in your survey just like you said it?
No, I actually didn't quite finish it. I'm doing it right now. So
perfect. So just type it like you feel it. Type
okay.
it just like you feel it. Thank you. Who's next? What do you see? What does this look like to you specifically?
This is Commissioner Ross. When I answered my survey, I put that I wouldn't have to spend my time educating people that I exist as an Indigenous person, that we are here and we are making an impact to culture and economies and every aspect of this state. And then I was just thinking now that a lot of what came to mind isn't what I would see, but what we wouldn't see. We wouldn't see so much hate and so much, two sides arguing against each other and so many protests. And that's kind of what I saw as the things that wouldn't be there.
Okay, thank you. And for someone, thank you, Commissioner Ross. And if there's a commissioner who has not yet, Commissioner Figueroa, you're working on your survey. Could you please capture what Commissioner Ross just said about not seeing hate, not seeing so many protests and so much arguing over division? Please, thank you. One more before we move on to the next question. Who'd like to share with us what you see living in this state that we've created?
This is Commissioner Erickson. I'd say more people of color in leadership roles in the executive levels in the C-suite that are mentoring and being present.
Okay, thank you. And have you already completed your survey?
Yes,
And you've completed, that's what you said,
I
Commissioner?
included that. Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I said in my survey was the end of incarceration.
Ooh,
That's what I see. We don't need it. We don't use it against communities of color. We don't destroy families with it.
Yeah. I also want to share, sorry, Dr. J, I know you have a process here.
go ahead, Commissioner Viana.
Giving Indigenous people their land back, right? Decriminalizing sex work, drug use, poverty, and decision-making that is considers the next 7 generations. Also progress that isn't at the expense of other marginalized communities and land and body sovereignty.
Thank you. And you're going to write that just like you said that?
Yes, I will.
Please be sure to put it in for the next 7 generations and beyond. That would be one for Dr. J. I'm already in a battle about what that means. And so I can use as many voices as possible to join me in that awareness session. Thank you, Commissioner Viana. Thank you, Commissioner Maroon. Did I see another hand? So what does it feel like? What does it feel like to live in this fully inclusive, anti-racist, multicultural state where there's no more incarceration, where you can do what you want because you don't have to have a job or be on all these boards that you don't want to be on, where the Indigenous people are essentially their land is returned to them, where there's no more hate, no more protesting? What does it feel like to live in this state? Anyone?
There's no
I'll
fear,
have a go.
No fear,
and it's very peaceful.
peaceful. What else?
Real safety.
Did I hear safety? Safety. Feel safe. How else does it feel to live in a place like that?
I answered it with labor positive, a place that can change, also access, equity, no fear, and no more worry about gender issues.
No more worry about gender issues. Mhm. Thank you, Commissioner Botzer. How else do you feel? Fully included, equity and justice for all. Everyone flourishing, thriving, reaching their full potential for the common good. Equitable and just state for all.
Pursuit of collective happiness and not
Collective happiness. And what does collective happiness, what might that bring? Pardon?
Oh, a better world, the old phrase.
A better world. Okay. All righty, thank you. So it's 11:53 with about 27 minutes to go. And I want you to weigh in on, so what opportunity gaps need to be bridged in order to create this fully inclusive, multicultural, anti-racist state where there's equity and justice for all for the next 7 generations and beyond? Opportunity gaps that need to be bridged. What would you like to contribute, LGBTQ Commission, to the 5-year equity strategic plan? Our office is on point for bridging opportunity gaps and reducing disparities, and we will need to report out on this to the governor, to the legislature, and to Washington residents. Clearly, like you, we're not a service delivery agency, not either, but we certainly will be able to add influence and outcome measures. So what would you like to include in the plan? Who'd like to begin?
Equitable distribution of resources, because there is a difference between equality and equity. And I think that this really needs to be hammered home when it comes to funding and resources and resource
Equitable
allocation.
distribution of resources. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. And yes, there is a difference. Thank you for
Commissioner
pointing that out.
Robinson, Commissioner Robinson stole my words exactly on that first thing. But equitable redistribution of resources, of all resources, yes.
Okay.
And understanding that the land and everything in it in Washington State belongs still to the indigenous peoples who have lived on this land since time immemorial. So parting from there to do the equitable distribution.
Thank you. And you put that in your survey, Director Manny?
I will.
You will. Thank you. All, with that all in there, including the land. Thank you. Who else? What opportunity gaps need to be bridged in order to create the state we envision?
The government's approach to addressing sex trafficking and involving or having a statements and actions to, I guess, to make it more publicly known that sex work and sex workers are anti-sex trafficking, and it isn't completed.
Okay. So addressing the gaps around addressing sex trafficking, human trafficking and sex trafficking.
And labor trafficking.
And labor trafficking. Thank you. Commissioner Figueroa, if you've got your survey up, could you just drop those in also, please? Thank you. Did I see someone else? Katie or Mira, did you want to weigh in? Did you have anything to add on opportunity gaps that need to be bridged?
I think for me right now, because I'm so immersed in it, is education. And I just can't help but think of the youth and opportunities, specifically the fact that I'm in this position today, that I get to be here with all of you, is because of a lot of opportunity that was given to me. And so I would like to, for young people out there, to bridge those gaps of all different kinds, to get them in places where they can reach their full potential.
Okay, so bridge opportunity gaps in all ways so that young people can reach their potential. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
This is Commissioner Erickson. I'd say workforce development, making sure that everybody, the communities of color have the same opportunity for access to pursue the development in their career that they want.
Okay, workforce development. Thank you. Who else was speaking? Thank you, Commissioner Erickson.
That would be me. Immigration. And the barriers.
Immigration. What opportunity gap are you seeing there, Commissioner Baroga?
Access.
Access to citizenship?
That and anything really. I didn't want to answer this because resources were already addressed, but immigration in general, like if you can't, it just makes it harder.
So bridging the opportunity gaps associated with just immigration, period. Is that what you're saying? Yes? Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Botzer?
Economy, health, education, police organization, politics, equitable access to created services.
So when you say creative services, tell me what you're thinking in particular.
Only word I could think of to cover everything from C3s and nonprofits to businesses and state services, mostly in those areas of health, education, police, and politics.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's the full spectrum.
And groups without that status, right?
And
Groups without C3 status.
without C3 status,
Yeah.
what is that?
Oh,
Oh,
well, when I think
nonprofit.
of groups that are doing mutual aid efforts, right? A lot of those groups aren't fiscally sponsored or don't have C3 status because the nonprofit sector doesn't provide enough, it's not set up to support people with, anything other than services.
I see. Oh, perfect. Perfect. I've not yet heard that. And you all have typed that into your surveys, yes?
I'll just have to rewatch the live back.
Commissioner Figueroa, could you please capture that? A gap associated with not having a C3, 501c3 status? Okay. Any other opportunity gaps that need to be bridged to ensure that everyone flourishes and achieves their full potential for the common good in the state of Washington? No?
I'm so sorry. I feel like we didn't cover this, like around the process. Like I know you're gathering a lot of like information, and I'm not sure like if this is the process for every commission out there and what happens after. So I guess you should have led with that before beginning this process.
Not only is every commission, every agency, board and commission, and even elected officials who are not within our purview, and municipalities and educational institutions, all without of the scope of state agency, have been provided the opportunity to weigh in and participate in these listening sessions, because the bottom line is this information. That's why I asked you to fill out the survey. Surveys are coming back to our office, and that's the information we're going to use to establish our state's 5-year equity strategic plan. Certainly I have one, but what good is that if it's only me talking to myself? So all of this input has been, all of your information and the information of others across the state is going to be gathered and incorporated into our state's 5-year equity strategic plan. They've got to report out on every year to the governor, the legislature, and the Washington residents. And that's why question 5 is absolutely critical, because what you tell me there will frame the outcome measures for which state agencies will then develop equity goals in their equity plan and start reframing how they do business in order to achieve those outcomes. So I have invited far and wide. Everyone we've set a big, huge table, virtual table, for everyone's voice to be centered and heard and incorporated in our state's 5-year plan. So when you see it, you'll be able to say, oh, she's serious. She actually heard us. Put it in writing, as long as it's not edited. And I don't think it will be. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, I'm just feeling like this is very like extractive. And it's my experience working with governments and surveys where there isn't, like, I guess what I'm sharing is important as someone who is working on the ground. But how does the government take it a step further and actually hear from people who don't have the privilege of being paid to do this work, and who
right now they've been given the opportunity. So right now, what's happening statewide is every single state employee has been asked to receive the survey on how they're going to center belonging and equity to sustain workforce diversity. How are we going to create that? So that's gone out to the thousands of state employees. In addition, each state agency, board, and commission has received another survey link, this one with these questions, to go to all their stakeholders as well as the people that they serve. So for example, in DOC, we would expect to hear voices of people who are incarcerated. In the Department of Licensing, we would expect for them to go and find people who need to get a driver's license or a real ID. or at DCYF, to the extent possible, they'll be able to go talk to not only those foster parents, but those children in foster care. In DSHS, they'll be able to not only hear from their employees, but actually the people who are on TANF. So we've designed this whole process to center the voice of the people who have been historically and traditionally and currently marginalized, underrepresented, or just impacted negatively by systemic racism and or oppression. So that's what we have done to center the voice of staff and community of individuals who have been impacted by these systems to weigh in on the development of the strategic plan. The Office of Equity Task Force, which Executive Director Manny joined us after he came on board, they have operating principles, and one of their major operating principles, which you'll like to hear, you'll be pleased to hear this, Commissioner Erickson, was 1, to take bold action, and 2, to center the voice of the community. I take those operating principles very seriously. We in the Office of Equity will adopt them, and so this is my way of practicing what we preach. So I just thank everyone for once again participating, as opposed to saying, oh, here we go again. Just another, survey that nothing's going to happen and nobody's going to do anything with our information, nothing's going to change. Well, I can't promise that nothing's going to change. However, I will promise that your voices will be heard. We'll establish outcome measures based on what you tell me, and then can back in and start holding agencies accountable to do that. And as I said at the opening, so therefore, even though Executive Director Manny can't be leading on all this work around Results Washington, which our office is aligned, your voices will still be heard and centered in our state's Equity 5-year strategic plan. So thank you, Commissioner Viana, for just going there and asking the question.
Commissioner, I know Commissioner Robinson has something to say, but I just want to respond. Like, I know that surveys don't work, right? Because it doesn't reach the most marginalized people in our community when people are more concerned with housed, being fed, and having access to Wi-Fi or technology to take those surveys, right? Especially in a pandemic where community members aren't able to reach out to their stakeholders physically. So I want to name that, and it is a very extractive process. And I work with folks who are in poverty, who are houseless, and this is the least of their worries, right? And they don't have the privilege to be here to share their voices. So I know you're saying that we share all of this and come back and hold the Office of Equity accountable. What does it look like to hold them accountable from the beginning?
Well, this is all that we can do. And so from the beginning, we've set it up. And if you have access to people, then go ahead and print out the survey and take it to the people. That's pretty much what we're asking, especially all of our ethnic commissions, those of you who already have listservs and are dealing with people. It's printable, get it out there. We certainly have asked the agencies to go and talk to your customers. You're dealing with them now in this COVID environment. So however you're dealing with them, go get them, go get their voice. So I work with us, because remember, we have 3 people. We're just starting. We're not even a thing yet. We don't even have a budget, hasn't even come to us yet. And yet we've done the best that we could to make sure that as many voices as possible can be heard. And so if you have access to people, any of you, we're asking all of the commissions, all of the agencies, get this to your customers, to your stakeholders, to the people that you know who can tell us. The office will work with agencies to increase access to equitable opportunities in order to bridge opportunity gaps. I'm reading the press release from the governor, and reduce disparities. How on earth are we going to report out on bridging opportunity gaps if we don't ask what they are? How on earth are we going to report out on reducing disparities if we don't ask what they are? That's where your voices and the voices of those that you work with is critical. This is, as Commissioner Robinson said, we've got to get stuff done. And you're holding us accountable to make sure that we make it as easy as possible for everyone to clearly identify what opportunity gaps are we going to be bridging and which disparities are going to be eliminated and what must be we measure so that we can set up a strategic plan that gets us in this state where we need to get to and measure what needs to be measured so that we can hold our state agencies accountable for doing that. Because if we are not clear and specific on what our true north is, how are we ever going to get there? And our office cannot be clear in establishing that true north without hearing from you. So that's the accountability that I bring to you today. And that's also the ask that I bring to you today. And again, I thank you for bringing it up. So we've got 20 minutes left. If there are other questions, that just diminishes your opportunity to weigh in on which disparities need to be eliminated. Unless, of course, what you're saying is you will just handle that regarding the survey. You'll tell me specifically and what needs to be measured so we can have a dialogue. I'm here at your pleasure.
Madam Executive Director, I do want to bring something to your attention that I suspect you're not going to hear, and it needs to be said.
Okay.
I live in a county where the leader of my county government makes statements like, and I'm going to quote, Jay Inslee is quote unquote putting his knee on the neck of small businesses. I live in a county with a county government that uses white supremacist terminology and wild and reckless and doesn't care. I live in a community where we are still having debates over whether or not it is inappropriate to say things like Black Lives Matter. I live in a part of the state that has such a turbulent racist history that we are literally getting sued at the county level because our county commissioner districts do not, in fact, according to the lawsuit, empower people of color in our community. And I bring this to your attention because it's wonderful. The survey is a wonderful tool, but I have to be honest with you, as someone who's looking, oh, I don't know if I froze. I have to be honest with you as somebody who lives in a community that seems like it doesn't care, or a county, I should say, that doesn't care. It's really hard to answer survey questions. It's really hard to process this. And it makes me wonder, if we have an Office of Equity, what good is it going to do if we can't hold local governments when they misstep accountable? The city I live in has a Diversity and Equity Commission. It's wonderful. The Franklin County Commission, however, does not. It doesn't want one. It doesn't need one. It's not willing to address issues of police brutality at the sheriff's office. So I guess the question or concern that I would raise to you that I ask you to take with you, or the thing I ask you to take with you, is please think about the local governments when you're making your 5-year equity plan. Think about how we can change the laws as necessary to hold them accountable, because it's terrifying and it's humiliating to live in a governing structure where someone can say something like the knee on the neck comment and face no accountability of any kind.
Have you completed your survey yet, Commissioner Robinson?
I did. I'm afraid I
No
did
problem.
it right for the meeting.
So either Commissioner Figueroa or Director Santiago, the way I would frame that feedback from Commissioner Robinson, if you would, what opportunity gaps need to be bridged, holding local governments accountable. Well, that would be the, because state government, we don't have any purview or jurisdiction over them. But if you put that there in the survey, I can then put that into a strategic plan. And somebody else might want to pick that up legislatively or authority. I don't know, but at least we can call it out. Are one of you willing to do that for me, for us, for Commissioner Robinson?
We're taking notes on the meeting, so it'll reflect there.
Well, but if it reflects in the meeting notes are not going to get to our, I won't have that in my database. If you could put it in the survey, that would be helpful, under which opportunity gaps need to be bridged. Because then we could put that, we can address that issue as a gap in the strategic plan. Is everybody following me? Yes, thank you. So which disparity?
I have a question.
Yes.
Just, going back to what Isis was kind of saying too about like the opportunity gaps, I am worried that there is a gap, as Isis was saying, with the people who are receiving the survey and how accurate it is going to actually be reflective, because the concerns of the people that we most need to hear from might not take the survey or might not have it. And so I guess my question is, with this committee too, like, how is this transformative in finding this justice and equitability? How do we make sure that the patterns of just taking a survey and voices not actually being heard, how do we make sure that the outcome of this 5-year plan is going to create actual change and not continue the same patterns that have happened?
Well, I certainly can't take accountability for that, but I can certainly take accountability for it. So I think for what we need to probably also need to add, whoever's still typing surveys, what opportunity gaps need to be bridged? The gap is not listening to or reaching the communities most impacted. That's one of the reasons why this office was established. So what, in your opinion, must be measured to achieve this reality? I would hope someone would write then in that question, I don't know, the way it's currently written in our 12-point plan that we just sent out to agencies to start thinking about putting systems into place, is to actually having listening sessions with the people they serve who are impacted by their services. So just drop that in at most, at best. If we don't put it in the plan, the strategic plan, and if we don't establish an outcome measure for it, then the agencies won't have anything to connect it to guide their actions. But if you do call it out now, major opportunity gap is reaching the people who need the services the most, or the major opportunity gap is not even listening to the people who are adversely impacted by state government's racist, oppressive systems, then I really again encourage you to put that on your survey so that we can then identify an outcome measure that talks about centering voices of those who are historically and currently marginalized and adversely impacted by systemic racism in our 5-year plan and outcome measures, for which we are online for establishing an online performance dashboard, for which we can then publicly display how well state agencies are doing with reaching the people that are most impacted. And we can do it by state agency if you provide the information in the survey to the questions that we're asking. We're going to do the best that we can to be trusted stewards of the information you give us. Because the Office of Equity does not have any authority to make anyone do anything, we won't. However, we do know that what is measured typically is what gets done. And when people are publicly reported out, their progress is publicly reported out to the governor, the legislature, and the public, that often influences behavior. Let's make this easy for us to do that.
Dr. J, I feel like this process is very extractive, right? The government, we have seen this over and over from governments, where the government isn't building trust with communities. And I understand that you have to be the person to deliver this message, and you saying that the Office of Equity does not have any decision-making power or any way to hold government accountable in this process, that for me, that doesn't make me trust this process, right? Okay. And being told that, yes, what I'm sharing today will diminish the opportunity for me to share or to contribute to the state's 5-year plan. We need to do something different. We know surveys don't work. And the people who people who we need to reach aren't being reached because one, of a global pandemic, one, there is no access for them to to get this information out to government. And a listening session just sounds like an extractive, you're here to listen to us, provide you with our ideas, our like what is, it doesn't feel like a symbiotic relationship here.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Vienna. I appreciate that. And for those who do though want to weigh in on, so which disparities need to be eliminated, it's 12:20. Let's move to that, because unless, like I said, unless of course you want to continue just having a conversation, but we are certainly committed to doing our best. And the feedback we have received is no one in state government has ever asked anyone to this degree to weigh in on the development of a state's strategic plan of any sort, let alone an equity strategic plan for the state, where the outcome measures will indeed be reported to the governor, to the legislature, and to the citizens to whom we say we serve. So I'm willing to give it a chance, and I'm hoping that you are too, for which we will then establish outcome measures for what we want to see to live in this state that we want. I'm willing to use the process, and then we can see what happens as you all are performing your being informed role with Results Washington, because what goes in that Results Washington dashboard will be aligned with the information that you give us today. So results, as a matter of fact, Results Washington has paused their work to make sure that it aligns with what the information we're gathering from the Office of Equity. Because while they're getting information from agencies, we're getting information from the people that those agencies serve. So I believe that we have an opportunity to maximize this moment, to make it a historic moment where we can begin to center humanity and begin to rebuild society, as we are also dismantling historically, systemically racist and oppressive systems. So I'm delighted that the governor and the legislature has seen the need that the racial inequities and people who have been historically oppressed and marginalized, that something must be done. So let us come together and do the best that we can to start creating a state where equity and justice for all is for all, where everyone flourishes and achieves their potential. And if you know, again, if you right now are in relationship with real people with real issues who don't have access to Wi-Fi or to computers, please feel free to print out the survey for them and write down their responses and get that to Executive Director Manny, who can get that to me so we can center this in our strategic plan, outcome measures, to put it on our online performance dashboard so that we can begin to start letting the governor, the legislature, and the residents of the state just know how well or not how well we're doing. But we have to start somewhere, and this is our start. Now is the time. This is the place, and we are the ones. And we are calling all Avengers to assemble with us and give it our best shot, so that when the history books are written about us, they will write and people will read, provided we don't kill ourselves in the process based on the hatred that several of you talked about in our hearts. They will read that there were a group of people in Washington state in 2021 who came together hoping against all hope, hoping against all reality in the face of a pandemic, hoping that they could show up and use their voices, their pens, whatever they had to create a state where everyone flourishes and achieves their potential. It's 1224. Which disparities need to be eliminated?
Dr. J, we're being rushed into this process, and you naming the time, right? It doesn't give anybody confidence in this to support this, right? Is the government asking us to print out forms to go to houseless folks when we're being asked to do this work for free?
No, all I'm just saying, Commissioner Vienna, is right now you have a tool in your hand that you can use to get the voices of the people that you're most concerned about. The reason why I'm naming the time is because I'm your guest. I'm leaving at 12:30, so you can be about the business of doing your business. I just wanted to make sure that you all had the opportunity to weigh in on the last two questions so that we can hear it together. And if there's anything that you say that might need to be framed so that we can make it actionable, we could have that dialogue. Because I'm not going to go over your time. You haven't given me that permission. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all to you. What I'm trying to do is just make sure that all the commissioners who want to speak in the remaining 5 minutes that we have left on the two questions we have left have an opportunity to do so, unless what you're saying to me is you all don't need to have any more conversation with me at all, in which case, then I certainly will not impose upon your time. I'm your guest. All I've done is just set a virtual table for you to weigh in on.
Let us thank you for being here, and goodness sakes, I think if there's some way we can continue to write these documents, because I know that part of me that's been in too many meetings is looking at the time, and want to respect everybody's time. If we can get in one more question, that would be great. I did notice that Commissioner, I believe Maroon had a question, but we also have to do a little bit of business at the end to close out our meeting today.
Right.
And I think we're limited on that, but wanted to thank you very much for your work and your presence here.
Thank you. And also, just for the record, the surveys aren't due until sometime in the middle of June. So you have time to think about it. You know, so they're not due today, they're not due yesterday. You have to like June or something. So there's time. So if that's where and I did just hit me, maybe that's where the rush was coming from. You have plenty of time to weigh in and think about what you want to say. So with that, I'm going to take that final thank you as a goodbye, because I don't want to overstay my welcome. I honor you, I commend you, and encourage you in the work that we have to do together. And I look forward to us partnering again in the future. Thank you. Have a great meeting today.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to join you.
I want to say something real quick. First of all, thank you, Dr. J, for coming and sharing with us and your idea, your vision, and to giving us the opportunity to weigh in on some of these questions. And we do know that I also want to apologize for not giving you the full 90 minutes that we had agreed on. We had some things that we had to vote on and discuss and all that. I also want to say, as I was hearing some of the concerns and some of the gaps, right, that we want to point out, I think that is going to be important for us as a commission to come up with different strategies that we can go not only to our commissioners and to gather the information and have feedback for the Office of Equity and the larger enterprise, but also to gather our community. So the different members of our community have the opportunity to weigh in some form or another. So just to address that, some of your concerns, Commissioner Vienna, I think that we can be very creative in the way that we as a commission, gather the information from our community and then present that to the Office of Equity in a way that in one of the ways that they're collecting that information. So my commitment as the director of this commission is to work with each one of you individually so we can go back to the communities that we are currently serving and find innovative ways to gather the information that we need to address those gaps and to address those concerns that our community has. I do share with Commissioner Vienna's concerns about how to reach out to the community and gather that information. I also recognize that there are very limited tools that we can use currently to gather that information. So we can work, at least on my part, I'm more than happy to start working with the commissioners on finding ways in which we can gather that information about this is how my community can be best served to dismantle the system that has kept us oppressed.
So before, and I'm going to leave after this, but saying that, that was our, virtually every one of the community groups I've met with thus far, we've met with, they have brought real life people, like the Black Education Strategy Roundtable, brought people, real people that they serve. You know, the groups that I have met with, Emerald Cities, they brought people that they serve to the session. So if you want to do something like that also, or if you want to do something different, I mean, we're here to help. But we have had sessions where these groups who work with people, Black people, brown people, gay, well, let's see, people, real people that agencies serve, they have brought them to these sessions, and everyone has, you know, been encouraged to do that. So I'm out. I know that you are got work to do, and if we need to do something together again in a different way, we're willing, because this is our opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm unsure, but it seems that we're out of time. Is that true?
It is. We can quickly, since we started about 5 minutes later, we have 4 minutes for any announcement and then the closing motion.
Can I?
Yeah,
can
we
I
have
just?
to have, yes.
Oh, sorry, Marcia. I just wanted to say, after
go
that
ahead.
discussion, I'm just concerned because I feel like communities have been telling the government for years and years what they need. And the survey just seems as like the final or the first time they're actually responding, but they're like, do it our way instead of listening to what's really happening through protest. And I think maybe it's from my perspective as a young person who's pretty vocal, but it's like, I see people every day screaming at the top of their lungs what they need. And this doesn't feel like a survey like this is gonna, oh, sorry, my PowerPoint's going everywhere. It just doesn't feel like it's going to do anything. And it's kind of like, well, you should have been listening all along. We're here, we're telling you already. And then I worry about the systemic change, you know, but doing it through this system that has been founded on racism. And you know, how is that going to change? And I just want to thank ISIS for your comments, because I just sincerely share those. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I am livid around this process, because the use of Indigenous values, such as wanting to support the next 7 generations as a way to use that language to perpetuate white supremacy in the process and racist ways of doing this work. It just, I can't believe that this is happening.
I agree. It's like you're trying to take down this anti-racism through the point of this white supremacy and cover it. I'm very uncomfortable with it.
Friends, there's no outside space outside racism. There's no space outside white supremacy in the United States of America. Everything we do is coded by a racist society. Everything we think, all of our efforts are always encapsulated within racist practices and histories and institutions. There's no way actually to talk to the most vulnerable people in our state that's not embedded in, you know, some racist system. So I'm not saying that excuses, you know, yet another survey, but we have to be able to dream. We have to be able to hope. We know that human systems do change over time. We no longer have the divine right of kings in the US. That's great. Okay, check that off. But we have a very complicated government. We have a very complicated prison system. We have a very complicated healthcare system. And all of these things, that we wade through as human beings are set up to be racist and perpetuate racism. So transformation it's not a thing that like the state of Washington can do correctly. It's not a thing that they can do without this albatross of white supremacy, and that's why we need everyone to scream about it. But like state government can't understand protest and actuate a new strategy from protest. We allow protest in the United States, big air quotes, but we don't make policy based on it. So, when they ask for, when Dr. J keeps going back to this, measures and objectives and all that, that is the only way government understands itself, is to measure something. And those measurements are racist. So,
Yeah,
it's good to point it all out.
Right.
Right. Other voices.
For solutions to do this, to do something different, and we're literally telling you that a survey doesn't work, right? And that this isn't the way you do this. And being, sorry, I am just dumbfounded by this. What just happened? That interaction.
All right. Recognizing everybody's feelings, are there any other comments before we go forward? I think I see Commissioner Robinson.
I think the most appropriate thing to say, given that we are all processing this, is to thank Commissioner Isis and to thank everyone else who may be feeling uncomfortable right now and who may be feeling a sense of having to relive trauma, a sense of having to relive their experience being invalidated. Your feelings are valid. You are heard. I'm listening to you. You have taught me more in the course of your comments than I could have ever thought possible. So I want to take a moment to say thank you, because you are valid. Your point of view is valid. I respect what you have said. I am going to be reflecting deeply on it to learn from it so that I can better myself in this overall conversation. And I really appreciated that you were willing to talk about it. The emotional labor involved can be quite extraordinary in so many ways. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? And then I think we have to move towards conclusion.
This is Commissioner Erickson, and I agree with Commissioner Robinson, and I think that this demonstrates that, just how challenging it is to really find the right way to engage the communities that we're trying to help. And we have to be open to truly reaching the people that can inform this process. So thank you.
Anyone else? All right. I'll just go to your committees and do the work. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
Thank
I
you.
ask that we have a summary
Motion-
or affirmation vote.
Of course, yes. Roll call vote on adjourning.
Not a roll.
A roll call and affirmation, whether everybody is okay or not.
Just aye
No
or
need
nay.
to.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, of course. So please, if we would have that affirmation vote from staff, please, call the names and take your vote.
If nobody is opposed to the motion to dismiss, then we can dismiss. That's basically it.
Correct.
I see, all right. Oh, listen, we do it the way we want to do it. So if that's it, is there any opposition to adjourning? Oh my goodness. All right. Take care of yourselves, help each other. We work together. Thank you. And we are.